All right, here we are. I told you before we were going to do a bonus edition of the bullpen today. My good friend Chris Fedor, Cleveland.com. He's a new dad. How's being a new dad, by the way? I mean, I know it's not that new at this point, but how is it? You sleeping?
It is the best thing ever. It's life-changing in the best way imaginable, even better than I anticipated. We just had Elliot's first birthday over the weekend. It was awesome. We did the hole-in-one theme because he's 1 year old.
Right.
We got him this cool little car that we push him around in. He absolutely loves it. He loved opening the presents. So it's just like great to see the world through their eyes, right? Like, and see them develop in front of you.
It really is amazing. The first birthday party, though, is really about you and your wife. I mean, it's really about celebrating the fact that you've survived a year. Now, your kid apparently is pretty easy. I know you told me last time we were texting about it not too long ago. You were saying he has a good sleeping schedule, and I'm like, that's great. These things can change. But it's really the surviving the first year, especially for the woman, because let's face it, the wives are doing most of the work, especially with your job, because you're traveling all over the place. So she's doing the brunt of it.
That's the hard thing. The hard thing on her, obviously, is me being gone, but it's also hard on me, too, being away from it. Thank God. Thank God, Bull, for FaceTime so that he can see my face when I'm on the road and he can try and touch the phone and see if it's actually me and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite moments that we have, and it sucks because it involves me leaving and then coming back.
Sure.
But coming through the door and him seeing me after a long trip, and then he just waves his arms frantically because he's so excited. That's like my favorite moment.
There's nothing better than the joy that your child has in seeing you.
Yeah, I know.
Right, because there's nothing else that matches it. You know, not as much as you love your spouse or whatever. That childlike joy of, oh my God, I haven't seen you, and now I see you. That's great stuff. All right, well, the reason you travel so much is because you cover in the Cavs, and the last time we spoke on the podcast was before the season to preview the season. And now we're, just past the quarter pole, right? 22 games. The Cavaliers are 14-8 on the season. It's been an interesting start to the season. Overall, what would your grade be for the Cavs at the quarter pole?
It's funny that you bring this up because the other day at shoot-around, I asked Donovan Mitchell, I said, okay, you just passed the quarter point. Are you where you expected to be at this point? He said, we're ahead of where we thought we would be. I think given everything that they have dealt with, it's hard to give them anything other than an A. I mean, they are one of the top 4 teams in the Eastern Conference, despite the fact that they've used 12 different starting lineups.
Amazing.
12 different starting lineups, Bull, in the first 22 games.
That's crazy.
And they haven't been able to find like a consistent fit at small forward. I think coming into the year, everybody knew that was going to be a weak point. It didn't work out with Karis LeVert. They find something in Lamar Stevens in the starting lineup, and then he goes out with an illness for a week. Jared Allen has missed time. Darius Garland missed 2 weeks. So given all of that, combined with the natural growing pains that were expected when you have Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland coming together and trying to figure out how to play with each other, and combined with the fact that, Evan Mobley's in year 2 and he hasn't experienced everything, and Jared Allen is still a relatively young player in the NBA, it's hard to give them anything other than an A. I think coming into the year, we knew that Boston and Milwaukee were going to be on a different level than them. I think that has shown itself in the first quarter of the season. But the Cavs are right there in the conversation with Brooklyn and Toronto and Philadelphia as one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference, as a legitimate contender.
I would agree with you. Everything you said there, I would give them an A as well. Watching, obviously you have a closer view being around the team all the time, but from an outside view, just watching them on TV, I would give them an A as well. I guess my only concern, and maybe concern is a strong word, beyond the things you've already talked about. Is there any concern on your part? How much, for such a young team, it seems like over the last 2 years, they've lost so much time due to injury. How concerned are you, and should we be about that?
So I'm not that concerned about it. I think other people that cover the team and other people from a national perspective may be more concerned about it. But I'm not as concerned about it simply because I dealt with COVID, in terms of the grind that it was in the NBA. And essentially everybody that I talked to during COVID said, we are all going to be impacted. Reporters, executives, coaches, players, referees, we are all going to be impacted by this for the next 2.5 years because they condensed multiple seasons into one calendar year. And they knew that there were going to be ramifications to do that, but there was their best possibility of like getting through it the way that they needed to in order to have a season, in order to crown a champion. And I think you're feeling the effects of that. Guys just didn't have as much time to recover. Guys had more of a condensed schedule than they were used to. And Bull, you know this. Athletes are creatures of habit.
Sure.
They like doing things a certain way. And if you just look around the NBA, there are injuries everywhere. Brooklyn is dealing with injuries. Milwaukee's dealing with injuries. Miami is dealing. So if it was only a Cavs specific thing, I would be a little bit more like you would have more cause for concern. But if you just look around the NBA, there isn't a team in the NBA that hasn't dealt with it. And they haven't dealt with it to the same level as the Cavs to this point.
It's an interesting point. I didn't really think about the seasons being pushed back because of COVID still affecting it. But yeah, it makes sense because it's been such a factor for a couple of years. And you're right. There are, as any of us know from being in fantasy basketball, it seems like every day there's another guy that doesn't play for one reason or another.
Right.
It's a fair point.
In saying that, I think what gets magnified a little bit when it comes to the Cavs is just when they miss one of their key pieces, whether it's Donovan, Darius, Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, the depth that people thought they improved coming into this year gets exposed a little bit. Because now all of a sudden you're asking Isaac Okoro, instead of being a 15 to 20 minute guy, which is probably what he is at this stage of his career and development, now all of a sudden you're needing him for 28 to 30 minutes. And he gets exposed and the Cavs get exposed. Now all of a sudden you're asking more of Dean Wade. Now all of a sudden you need Robin Lopez to actually play rather than just being a luxury veteran backup who's good for the locker room and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And on top of that, well, like they came into the year with only 14 guys, really 13, because Ricky Rubio isn't ready to play yet.
Right.
So that depth that you felt a little bit better about based on the moves that they made this offseason, like that gets exposed when you start getting into guy number 11, 12, 13 in this rotation.
It's funny. I don't know if you remember this, but when we talked in the preseason, I asked you from the trade with the Jazz, who's the guy that they would miss the most? And you said Markkanen.
Yeah.
And what a season this guy is having. Now, obviously, we wouldn't take back the trade, but it'd be nice to still have Markkanen on the team right now.
Yeah. I mean, I think they'd love to have a guy like Lauri Markkanen. If you ask, like, hey, what's the missing piece of this roster? What kind of player do they need? Like, it's not Lauri Markkanen, but it's a guy with the skill set of Lauri Markkanen.
Right. Yeah. And and the Cavs appear to be in a spot where they don't have much to trade to improve, do they? I mean, does Isaac Okoro have any value in a trade? Does Jetty, if they were going to trade him as an expiring contract? I mean, do they have anything to deal to get to help these other areas?
Yeah, that's the thing, right? So, like, we can talk about how they need to upgrade the wing spot. They know it too. Like, they're not dummies. They don't look at the situations like, yeah, we're fine. We got Dean Wade and Lamar Stevens and Karis LeVert. We can just piece it all together. But it's about the value that you would have to give up and then what that would get you in return. So if you're being honest about it, okay, let's package in this hypothetical trade, let's package Jetty Osman and a couple of second-round picks. Like, what caliber player do you really think that's going to get you?
Not much.
It's probably going to get you like a Lamar Stevens type player.
Right.
Or a Karis LeVert type player. It's not going to be a significant upgrade over what the Cavs already have. However, like, I think Karis LeVert being an expiring contract worth around $18 million, that starts to get you into some conversations. And then maybe you can attach like Isaac Okoro to that, or a future draft pick, or 2 future draft picks. I think Karis is the name to watch as we get closer and closer to the trade deadline, especially Bull, if he shows that he can't be comfortable in this new role that they're trying him out in, which is coming off the bench, where he can have a little bit more freedom.
Now, he did have a big game last night. I think it was 8 of 10 or 9 of
Yeah.
11 from the field. But
he was great. He made his first
Yeah.
5 shots. That was his highest scoring game since October 28th against the Boston Celtics, when he exploded for 41 in the biggest outlier performance of the season for any individual on the roster.
Yeah. So how do you feel he is? Are you concerned that he's not going to take to this role?
Well, I just don't know. I have been kicking around an idea, and I ran it by a few people in the NBA and with the Cavs last night before the game. Like, I just wonder, is what Karras does well, is that what the Cavs need? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
because
sure.
It's about finding a fit. It's about finding a stylistic, a player that is stylistically compatible to what they need. And it's like, what he's best at is isolation basketball. Oh, there goes. That's awesome. That's never a good sign
that was funny.
When your sign just falls down.
Yeah.
He goes down.
Yeah.
He's best at like isolation basketball. He needs the ball in his hands to be most effective. And it's the same thing with Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. And it's going to be the same for Ricky Rubio when he eventually gets healthy.
Right.
So it's like, I just don't think the things that make him a good player are what the Cavs need. So I've been kicking around the idea of whether it would make sense for them to try and dangle him at the trade deadline and just find like a low usage player who is going to understand his role and knock down outside shots and space the floor, like the things where Karras comes up short. Because I think that's what the Cavs ultimately need around Darius and Donovan. And I think that's what they're going to need once Ricky comes back. And when Ricky comes back, I think some of the problems that you've seen with Karras playing alongside Darius and Donovan are going to be very prevalent again. And I just don't know that he's ever going to be as comfortable as the Cavs would want him to be as they compete for, an Eastern Conference title.
When let's we'll take a quick break, 30 seconds, and come back with more of Chris Fedor. I want to get to some of the things JB said during the 5-game losing streak that I thought were interesting. We'll get to that in just a second. First, let me talk to you about Built Bars. Folks, if you have never tried a Built Bar before, try it for the first time. Some great new flavors: cookie dough topper, coconut brownie bar, coconut brownie topper, white chocolate peppermint granola. It's Built's take on the granola bar. It is great. If you want to get a good deal on the Built Bars, go to Built.com, BUILT.com, and use the code LOCKEDON15, LOCKEDON15. Built Bars. You got to try this. They're great. All right, Chris, let's get back to this. Now, when the Cavs lost the 5 in a row, they started 8. They lost their first game, won 8 in a row. Then they lost the 5 in a row. And JB had some interesting comments, basically alluding to the fact that you had some really good columns at that point, and it was about how, like, they thought they arrived, basically. Now, was that his way of just motivating and pushing them, or was that like a real issue? Like, were they getting complacent, or was he just using that as a way to motivate them, or a little of both?
I think a little bit of both.
Okay.
Honestly, I think JB is a master communicator. I think he has a really good pulse of the team. I think he knows how to communicate in a way that they're going to follow and what's going to resonate with them. But I also think them going on the winning streak that they went on and having the 2 signature wins against Boston had them feeling a different kind of way. Like, Darius Garland was talking about immaculate vibes, right? Like, at times they weren't tested the way that you would want to be tested. And I do think that they got a little bit too big for their britches. It's a natural human reaction. And I think handling prosperity in sports can be as complicated as handling adversity, especially when you're not used to it.
You talk about guys wanting the ball in their hands. It seems like they've kind of now settled into this where it's really Darius is the point guard and Donovan is the 2 guard. Are both guys, I guess Donovan Mitchell especially, is he comfortable in that situation? And how is the chemistry between the 2 of them?
I think it's still growing on the court. Off the court, it's great. They get along great. They have personalized handshakes. They hang out all the time. Their lockers are very close to one another. And they both want the same things, right? Donovan wants to win at the highest level, and Darius wants to win at the highest level. And they're not focused on stats, and they're not focused on individual accolades. But the truth is, the role that they're each in when they're playing alongside each other, it's different. So you can't just snap your fingers and say,
Sure.
well, I want to make this work, so let's make it work. It's a different kind of usage for Donovan. It's a different kind of teammate for Donovan. And the same thing for Darius. Darius went all of the second half of last season, Bull, being the guy.
Right.
Everything involving the offense went through him because that's what they needed of him.
Yep.
To ask him to flip overnight just wasn't going to happen. And if you remember the Miami Heat, when they started 8-9 or whatever, Dwayne Wade had to say, LeBron, I am taking a step back. You're going to be the closer, right? You're going to be the alpha. And I think eventually the Cavs may have to get to that point if they continue to have some growing pains that last a little bit longer than everybody would like. But I think you see signs of the brilliance that they can be together. Like, they're the highest scoring backcourt duo in the entire NBA. And we're talking about Steph and Clay. We're talking about DeJounte and Trae Young. And Donovan Mitchell is legitimately in the MVP conversation. I think Darius Garland is playing like an all-star. So it's working well enough, even though I don't think they've figured it out completely yet at this point. And I don't think they should have figured it out completely at this point.
Let's talk about Evan Mobley. It's interesting. I think I texted you recently about him defending Giannis, and I know he's impossible, but he defended Embiid, and Embiid seemed like he was asleep at the wheel. I mean, I don't know what was going on with him. It was just one of those nights in the NBA for a veteran player. I don't know, but is he a guy in Mobley does he want that challenge? Like, does he want to defend Giannis and Embiid and these top players in the league?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, yeah.
He believes Evan comes across as humble. Evan comes across as reserved, but there is a sense in talking to him that he knows how good he is. He knows how good he can be too. And the way that he can show that, the way that he can impact games in that kind of way is more so on the defensive end still than the offensive end at this point in time. He wants to guard Giannis. He wants to guard Embiid. He wants to guard the best of the best because he believes that he is that kind of defender and should be that kind of defender. And I think last night against the 76ers, Bull, was a big step for Evan from this standpoint. That is the kind of matchup that is not supposed to be favorable to him.
Sure.
He was giving up 65 pounds. Embiid is a monster who is more polished, more seasoned. He's experienced more throughout the course of his career. Those are the kinds of matchups at times that Evan has struggled with. Sure. Look at the Minnesota game. He couldn't get shots off against Rudy Gobert, and he couldn't handle himself on the defensive end of the floor. Because he's 21 years old, and he's still growing, and he's still evolving. But for him to hold Embiid to 2 of 6 from the field, for the Cavs as a whole to hold Embiid to his second worst performance of the entire season, the first time in the last 5 games that he hasn't reached the 30-point mark, for Evan to thrive and have success in that kind of matchup where things weren't in his favor, that just shows that he is basically capable of anything that he puts his mind to and anything that the Cavs give him the opportunity to do. There are very few things, even at this stage of his career, Bull, that I will sit there and say, Evan can't successfully do X, Y, Z. It's unbelievable watching him on a nightly basis.
Yeah, it really is. Is Jared Allen a mentor for him at all, or do they not have that kind of relationship?
Yeah, he is. But I think it's in a different kind of way. You know what I mean? Like, everybody leads in a different kind of way. And I think the thing that Evan picks up from Jarrett is just an intensity from the beginning of the game to the very end of the game. That nonstop motor, that physicality, that attention to detail, that effort, that's something that I think Evan is picking up on. And this year, in year 2, I feel like you're seeing a more aggressive Evan Mobley. I think you're seeing a guy who has more of a bleep you mentality. I'm going to bury you. Like, he has a competitive fire that burns hot. He wants to be one of the best players that has ever played this game. He has told me that. And I have written about that. But in order to do that, like, you have to play the way that Jared Allen plays from opening tip to the end of the game. And you're seeing more evidence that Evan's starting to get that.
And if he, because Jared Allen plays with, an intensity that's top of the line in the league. He doesn't have the talent that Evan Mobley has, obviously.
Exactly.
So if Evan Mobley plays to the level of Jared Allen with that intensity, then my God, I mean, he's going to be scary good and that's why everybody loves Jared Allen, because he's not that he's not talented. He's just not as talented as Mobley. Right. But we all love players where it feels like they're playing 100% all the time. You love those guys, and
and that's the way that Jarrett has taken Evan under his wing. Is just by showing him that he's a leader by example. He can be vocal, and he has been vocal. Mm-hmm. And I think there will be times throughout the course of this season where he will continue to be vocal. But he's more of a lead by example kind of guy.
All right, quick break here, and then we're going to get some updates on Kevin Love and potentially Ricky Rubio as well. That's coming up next in the bullpen with Chris Fedor and Adam the Bull. All right, Chris, we are back, and let's talk about Kevin Love. He's missed, 5 or 6 or 6 or 7, something like that. Yeah. What's his status at this point? How close is he to being back in the lineup?
So when he came back for that one game, it was an opportunity for him to kind of test it in that environment and see, okay, can I play through the pain in this fractured thumb? Can I get by and still be effective, even though I'm going to be a little bit limited? And I just think there was way too much discomfort, Bull. And I think the things that he does on a possession-to-possession basis with his hands, rebounding, deflections, bodying guys in the post, catching passes on catch-and-shoot opportunities, I just think it was too much for him to play through that. So he's going to have to continue to try and manage the pain. He's going to have to continue to see if this thing can heal a little bit quicker than maybe anticipated. The other day following shoot around, he went through an individual workout with one of the assistant coaches, and he did a lot of catching of the basketball and a lot of pulling down rebounds and catch and shoots and stuff like that. But it's just really, really difficult to predict when it comes to this injury, because it's like, can it get to a point where Kevin feels like he can play and be effective enough where he's not hurting the team? Like that game against Atlanta, he took a couple of shots. He played like 12 or 14 minutes, and he clearly was fumbling the basketball away, and he was favoring the thumb. And you just don't want that, because you can't be the kind of player that the team needs you to be in that kind of state.
How about Ricky Rubio? Is we looking at January? Is that what it is at this point? I mean, is even that too soon?
I think that's too soon.
Yeah.
But Ricky looks good. Every time that I see him working out and every time that I talk to him, he speaks as somebody who is coming along great, and he looks great as well. But as we know, there's a big difference between basketball shape and just regular conditioning. And there's a big difference between going out on the court in one-on-one situations against Isaiah Mobley and then 3-on-3 and 5-on-5. So he met with doctors recently. It was basically what I was told was like an 11-month checkup. And then if he was given the green light, and I haven't heard one way or the other if he was given the green light, then he was going to be able to progress to 3-on-3 and 5-on-5. And then the Cavs are going to want to practice, and they're going to want to get him some contact, and they're going to want to test that knee. All of my sources continue to say that they are not going to rush Ricky. Because they understand how important he is. They understand the nature of this injury, and they understand that there's enough that they have in terms of Karras, Donovan, Darius, that can do some of the things for Ricky that they don't desperately need him. And I think because of his age, because of the contract that he signed, because of his second torn ACL, because of where they are in the standings, like all those different factors, I think the Cavs are going to be cautious. But this is about, in most cases, a 12-month injury. And that points to late December, early January.
Chris, the upcoming schedule, you got Orlando at home tomorrow night. They go to New York on Sunday for the Knicks, back home, Lakers, Kings, and Thunder, and then down to Texas for San Antonio and Dallas. Let's talk about the most important thing here, the food. You're going to New York on Sunday. Will you be partaking in pizza? Do you have enough time? What's going on?
I mean, usually when I get in the night before, I'll either hit Grimaldi's or I'll hit my favorite burger spot called JG Mellon.
Okay.
I just don't know yet if I'm going to get there in time to comfortably make those kinds of treks.
That's troubling.
I think I am. It is troubling, but I'm not in a rush to get to New York because, one, my son, and two, they don't have shoot around the next day because it's a weird 6 o'clock start.
Yeah.
So it's just not like a huge rush for me to get to New York. And on top of that, at the end of the season, they have this awesome back-to-back series against the Brooklyn Nets, where, of course, I'm staying in Manhattan. I'm not staying in Brooklyn. Yeah. I'm staying in Manhattan. So 5 straight days in New York is something that we have not experienced on the road.
Yeah.
And because of that, it gives me a little bit more flexibility this time.
That makes sense. How about do you go like barbecue when you're in Texas? Do you go?
Oh, yeah.
That's where you got to go, right?
Yeah. I mean, Dallas has arguably the best barbecue that I've ever had. It's a place called Pecan Lodge. It's in Deep Ellum. You need to check it out. If you go to the Dallas area, you need to check it out.
I will.
Look, I'm a barbecue aficionado.
I've heard that about you.
As David Blatt used to say, aficionado. I'm a barbecue aficionado.
I'm sure nobody made fun of him for that.
Everywhere I go, I will try barbecue. Even in Chicago, like the other trip we made to Chicago Bowl, I went to a place called Bub City Barbecue. It was a brand new place. They had live country music. It was an awesome environment, and they had really, really good barbecue. You would not expect that from Chicago.
No,
but I just love barbecue so much that I do have an internal list of the best of the best. And Houston is number 1 for me. And number 2 is Dallas. So I'm really excited about this trip coming up.
Too bad there's no NBA team in Kansas City. I do like some Kansas City.
I know. Everybody tells me that I need to try Kansas City barbecue, and I haven't to this point, and it really bothers me.
Chris, you got anything interesting you're working on column-wise? What do you got going on?
I'm working on a big piece on Karis LeVert that we talked about. And like, what is the right role for him? Is there a correct role for him on this team, given the other personnel? And I'm also working on an awesome feature on Dean Wade. And I don't want to give away too much, Bull, but his story is absolutely remarkable. Given where he came from, this little town in Kansas that has 1,200 people.
Oh, my gosh.
And 0 traffic lights.
What?
There has never been anybody before Dean Wade that has earned a Division I scholarship to play basketball from his school. And now this dude...
It's like Hoosiers.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And now this dude is guarding Giannis and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown.
It's insane.
And he's a key piece of a team that has legitimate playoff aspirations. It's an unbelievable story. So
I think I had 1,200 people. I think I had 1,200 people in my high school.
That's probably right.
Yeah. Oh, man. All right. Well, we'll look forward to checking that out. Chris, thanks for joining me as always. Probably track you down at another 20 games or so, and we'll do the halftime grades or half-season grades and stuff. Good to talk to you as always. Enjoy the time with the family, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Bull. Make me a regular. I love it.
There you go. Chris Fedor, Cleveland.com. Obviously, check him out. Check him out on Twitter. And that's it for we already took 2 breaks. That's it. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Friday edition. We'll get you ready for the Browns and Texans. Are you excited to watch off the field stuff aside? Are you excited to watch Deshaun Watson on the field?
Is that me or is that a
hypothetical? Yeah, no. I'll ask you. Sorry.
I didn't know if that was like the radio tease.
No radio tease. Are you excited to see him on the field?
Yes, but I feel dirty about that.
I hear you. You know what? Here's the bottom line to me, and this is what I've said before. There's a bad guy on every team, right? There's a bad guy in every walk of life. Politics, this, that, whatever.
Yep.
I don't have to like Deshaun Watson. The league made its decision.
Right.
If you or anybody else wants to stop watching the Browns, doesn't want to watch them, I'm not going to call you an idiot. I don't got a problem with that.
Yeah.
On the other hand, people shouldn't try to guilt me or anybody else into saying, we got to, because there's probably 45 guys in the Browns that are good guys. So I can buy my son a Nick Chubb jersey and not a Deshaun Watson jersey because, as far as I know, Nick Chubb's a really great guy.
Right.
So I understand how people feel dirty, but I am excited to see him play.
In a perfect world, I would love to see the Browns have success and Deshaun not be at the center of it.
Yeah.
But I don't think that perfect world exists because I think he's very, very important if they're going to make this playoff push, if that's realistic. Like, he's going to be the one spearheading that.
That's right. All right, Chris, good stuff.
Which I think is going to be hard for people to stomach.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Chris, see you soon. We'll talk to you all tomorrow right here in the bullpen with Adam the Bull.